Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Frugal Fluent. So, into this video, I'd like to cover tips for learning languages. So, in this video, I would like to really focus on learning a foreign language, specifically English. Let's get going. So, the first of the most important things when you start to learn a foreign language, you have to have a good preparation. So the question is how to begin. So imagine if you learn a foreign language, it is just like you are planting a tree. And in order to plant a tree, you have to prepare for your plants before you grow them. In other words, you have to have a good soil which you can put a good seed on it. Then you also have to understand the steps. So let me make it clear for you that when you start to learn a foreign language, you have to have something in mind that there are three things that you have to really put attention on. First one is input, second is process, and the last one is output. And in order to have a good results, you have to have a good amount of input. Then you have to process the input before finally you can have a good input. So I will give you a clear understanding about this kind of process. So when you have input, it means you have to listen a lot. So if you are learning, say for example, English, you have to expose yourself to lots of listening. So to have a good input, you need to listen to native English speakers. But to have input itself is not enough. You have to process the input. It means you have to repeat many, many times till your brain can process that as a good information. So you have to repeat, you have to speak it out, and you have to use it, whatever you have listened to. So there are a number of ways how to do that, but I'm not going to explain that in this video. I will create another video separately. So when you have a process, then the next thing is output. So output is the product. So if you're creating a product, you got to have raw materials. The raw materials means the input, but you have to have a process. Our process is more about how you actually create a product and have it become an output. And the output would be something that you expect as your outcome. So the outcome of listening is the speaking, and the outcome of reading is writing. So to improve your communication, you have to listen a lot and you have to use it till you're able to communicate in the language more effectively. Then, what is the next thing to do? You have to have a landscape for your learning journey. So imagine a landscape is like having a map where you know exactly where you're going. So once you know your destination, you can have a good landscape of the journey. So you can imagine the steps to do and how you will accomplish the target. Now, once you have a landscape, it gives you a big picture of your final destination. Then, if you ask why you need to have a landscape, the reasons are first, you can see a big picture of your journey. Second, you can set focus. Third, you can decide the steps, what steps you want to take. And the last one, you can design your roads. So every destination has its own way to get to that place. So if you have a landscape, it makes it easy for you to have shortcuts, because no matter how far you're going, as long as you have shortcut, you can get to that destination easily and even more effectively. I'm going to talk that more in the next couple of minutes. So the basic elements of language journey. So imagine if you're learning a foreign language, it is like you're going somewhere. So we call it the journey. And what are the elements of it? So as I mentioned earlier, when you start to learn a foreign language, it's like planting a tree. So before planting, you have to have a seed. This seed will determine the quality of the tree. But having the seed itself is definitely not enough. So just like planting a tree, you need to prepare for materials. Simply put, seed here is exactly as materials are the resource you need to learn that language. Moreover, when it comes to materials, you have to have two things in mind. First, authentic, second, affordable. So the authentic materials are the ones that are produced by native speakers. Who are they? American, Australian, all those who are from New Zealand, British, and any countries that use English as the first language would be the one that you can refer to. But if you only have authentic materials, but you can't afford it, it won't be helpful. So the next thing to consider is that your budget. So if you want to start learning English, you have the budget for it. It means the money. But again, nevertheless, of how much money you have, you got to think that learning a foreign language today is even much easier than before, because most of the materials are easily accessible and you can access it through YouTube, podcasts, or many other sources that you can always have open access to it. And what else to do after these two things? Here is the thing. So if you have already had good materials and also you can afford it, the next thing to do is that to have target, and you have to write it. Because if you only have target in mind, you can simply forget it within a minute. So that you have to have a good thing written, yeah, somewhere, anywhere you can put and look at it anytime in any day. So your target has to be written so that you can have a look every day. So talking about a target is not as simple as you think. When you create target, you have to create something that is measurable. Measurable means that you can measure your target easily. So just for an illustration, if you want to see whether or not you already moved to the target, you have to first decide which aspects of the language that you really want to learn. So in this example, vocabulary, speaking, writing, or reading. And then you have to create numbers. Which ones do you want to focus more, and how long you will need the time to get to that target. So you got to set it pretty clear, and you have to have the right numbers so that you can always measure whether you already achieved the target or you got stuck and you are not moving anywhere. And after having a target, The next thing to have in mind is that to see the progress. Progress means here skills performance. So if you previously determined the speaking, vocabulary, or reading, you have to see within a year. For example, if you start learning a foreign language in 2024, starting in January, then you start with the input, like listening, and see how good your speaking is already after a month, 2 or 3, and see how much vocabulary you have already mastered, remembered, and also you are able to use it correctly in a conversation. The same thing for another skill like reading, how much you can understand the text in the target language. Specifically, if we're talking English here, you have to have in mind how far you have improved, how far you have progressed. So the skill performance is an indicator you are moving forwards, not stepping backwards. So when you learn a foreign language, always remember to have a target, but also you have to see how much you have progressed. So if you only simply learn it without having a progress, you are not going anywhere. And what next? Practice makes perfect. That's what most people say. But it's not as simple as that. When it comes to practice, you have to do it deliberately, gradually, but also interactively. You have to use the language every day within certain hours, because if you don't try to practice, you're not going to make it perfect. So imagine if you are going to one destination, then you want to get there pretty fast. You have to have a good transportation to take you there. You have to have a good driver to show you ways. And you have to have other supports that you need to get that destination. So learning a foreign language is actually the same. When you're going to one specific place, like learning a language, you have to have a good target. And how long will you accomplish the target? What steps you need to get to that place? And the only possible thing to reach the level that you want to be is that to practice as much as possible on a daily basis. So when you learn a foreign language like English, you have to go out and speak with as many people as possible to use any single vocabulary you have mastered or anything you have heard, so that you are able to use it correctly and appropriately. Because the idea of learning a language is to communicate it, to be able to communicate an idea or to express something. And the most possible way is that to be practicing that with a lot of different people outside. So the more you practice, the better your skill will be. Any skills. Then, what else? Well, we're going to show you more on how to actually improve your English. So stay tuned in the next couple videos. Thank you for watching.